Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. We begin in Nigeria, where the Department of State Services says it did not fire at protesters who on Tuesday demonstrated at its headquarters in Abuja, explaining that it only professionally dispersed a crowd that was attempting to forcibly free a detainee, Mr. Omoyele Sowore, from detention. It said in a statement issued by its spokesman, Dr. Peter Afunanya, that its agents had to protect its facility from the protesters, and it did so professionally. On Sowore, the DSS expressed its readiness to release him when, in quotes, processes are concluded. Meanwhile, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, says Yusuf Bichi, Director General of the Department of State Services, DSS, has stopped taking his calls. The senior lawyer said this while responding to the earlier statement by Peter Afunanya, spokesman of the DSS. Afunanya had accused Falana of playing to the gallery rather than reaching Bichi. In his response, Falana admitted that he has an official relationship with the DSS DG, but said Bichi had refused to speak with him since the agency refused to release Omoyele Sowore, his client, despite a court order granting him bail. He asked the secret police to release Sowore and Olawale Bakare, also an activist, from illegal custody and should stop exposing the country to unwarranted ridicule. That was in quotes. I mean, unwarranted ridicule is apt because it just looks bad. This is supposed to be a democracy. Now, the DSS has denied firing at protesters, but there's footage of the attack on protesters. There's footage of protesters sitting down with guns pointing at them, and they call this professional. There are those of us who call this heavy-handed.
Well, I mean, the spokesperson of the Department of State Services, based on what he has said, simply shows that, you know, the problem is actually with the leadership of the Department of State Services. Because what they are trying to do is to ask us to disbelieve the evidence of our eyes. We had on this program yesterday, you know, a video recorded by the Arise News crew showing exactly what transpired, you know, when the concerned Nigerians group tried to go to the Department of State Services to say, yes, you've been insisting that nobody, you know, has come to collect Sowore and Bakare. And here we are. We came on Saturday. You said it was not a working day. Now we are here on a working day. If you looked at those persons, they were carrying placards. You know, the footage didn't show anybody carrying any weapon. You know, with what would they have made a move on the headquarters of the Department of State Services with placards and with words or with their mouths or with their tongues? And when we had Yemi Adamolekun, who was part of that group that went there, you know, she said, in fact, they were not even anywhere near the main gate of the DSS headquarters. And now the spokesperson is saying, oh, they had to stop them in line with global security practice. It's not in line with global security practice for masked, you know, security persons, you know, to tear gas protesters in a you know, brute manner, or to use lethal and excessive force, or to chase, you know, protesters, or to, you know, destroy the tires of their vehicles, or to beat them up physically. It's a spokesperson of the Department of State Services telling us that Richard Oludare of The Guardian, who was shown, you know, yesterday with, you know, with wounds, fully brutalized from head to toe, or Walter of Galaxy TV, you know, or Stanley of Arise News, whose camera was seized. I mean, he should respond to that. But I think Falana, in responding to the DSS, has also made some very valid points. One, that the DSS is trying to constitute itself into an appellate court over a federal high court, a court of competent jurisdiction, which had given a release order, you know, and granted bail to the two accused persons who are in detention with the DSS. And Falana made the point that, look, this is contemptuous. This is an act of contempt against the court. And that even under the military, when he and others were charged for a similar offense, treasonable felony, once the court granted bail, you know, they were released. And they didn't run away. You know, the matter took its course. And at the end of the day, of course, you know, Falana is still here today. That military government, vacated office long ago. So these are the issues. I think, as we said yesterday, the Department of State Services must be seen to be defending the rule of law, must be seen as an institution, to be speaking with integrity and honor. And there was a line in the statement by the spokesperson of the DSS accusing journalists. Journalists are just doing their job. It's their job to report. There's no justification for the assault, for the attack on journalists who were doing legitimate job recognized under the Constitution of Nigeria.
Absolutely. And what's also interesting to see is that in that report, it was also stated that the DSS is now saying that he will be released when all processes are concluded. First of all, what exactly do you mean by that? A court order has gone out. He has met the bail conditions for that court order, and there is no condition under which you can still keep him. A couple days ago, you were here saying that you have not released him because nobody has come to pick him up. Now you're saying that you cannot release him because all processes are not concluded yet. What processes are we talking about here?
What they said specifically is that the persons that came, to the DSS office were not fit and proper persons. That these are persons who are playing politics. These are persons who seem to have a hidden agenda, where that's a matter of opinion. Okay, they can profile, the members of the concerned Nigerians. But there is nowhere that the High Court judge stated that the two persons in detention must be handed over specifically to their sureties. And that's the point that Falana was making, that, the DSS is trying to vary the ruling of the court. But as Tundu and others have said, I think the administration itself, the government, must take this, as a matter of urgent national importance and see that it's a comment. Not just on the DSS as an institution of government, but on the Buhari administration itself.
Absolutely.
I'm actually so triggered by this on many levels. This issue of the process has not been completed reminds me of my father's case. It's cited as Abiola and the Federal Republic of Nigeria in 1995. If you are applying for bail, it's an oral application. The government then, the military regime then, was trying to now vary what we all have accepted is the law in Nigeria and saying, he has to have a formal written application, he has to do this, he has to do that. This is what they're putting this Showore man through and his co-accused, Olawale Bakare. I'm so triggered, it's so upsetting. And then you now say absolute nonsense, like they were behaving professionally. How is this professional? Nigeria, this is contempt of court, like you said, because the court order has gone out. Yeah. It's also showing contempt for our constitution. There is a presumption of innocence in Nigeria. You are not to be illegally detained. You are only to be detained by state authority if you have been convicted of a crime. If you have not been convicted of a crime, you are at liberty, as long as you report to court, to answer the charges that have been levied against you at your court dates. This is completely unacceptable. It's actually extremely upsetting.
I can imagine.
Yes, let us proceed at this point. The Nigerian Senate says it will quash the hate speech bill if it realizes that the bill could bring about hardship for the citizens. Godiya Akwashiki, Vice Chairman of Senate Committee on Media, said this while addressing the proposed legislation was reintroduced on Tuesday, shortly after the upper legislative chamber introduced a bill to regulate social media. Many Nigerians, including former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, have opposed the bill, described as an attempt to clamp down on freedom of speech in the country. Akwashiki, however, said whether it will be passed or not depends on the impact it will have on the lives of Nigerians. Are you in any way persuaded by that?
I don't know what he's talking about. Sometimes some of these people, they just open their mouths and talk. I mean, it's very clear from public reaction that everyone, every stakeholder, and the general public have concluded that these two bills, the one on the proposed establishment of a commission to prohibit hate speech and the internet falsehood and manipulation bill, are veiled attempts to limit the scope of human freedom in Nigeria. And to that extent, what all these stakeholders have said clearly is that this will be two pieces of legislation that will not be in the interest of Nigerians, that will cause hardship, that will divide society, and that will create, complications in terms of the supremacy of the Constitution. So whatever the chairman or the Senate Committee on Media wants to hear is already out there in the open. So what remains is for the senators pushing these two bills and those who are to debate it to realize that the people for whom the law is to be made have already said that this is not in public interest and that these are not pieces of legislation that can promote good governance and good relationship within the Nigerian society. And that much being clear, what the Senate can do if it wishes to proceed in spite of all of this is to organize a public hearing. And I want to assure them that the level of objection they will get from the Nigerian public will stop their objective in its tracks, as was the case with the frivolous petitions bill of 2015, which had to be withdrawn in 2016.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, public interest has to be considered, and there is no public interest towards this bill. And it's very obvious, or even towards these two bills, and it's very obvious. We discussed this extensively on the show yesterday, and it's appalling to think that this is the kind of introduction we're getting in the Senate right now when we have greater issues on our hands, especially when you look at the framework of what is proposed. And you understand that right now you have lawmakers that are actually putting this forward and pushing for this. It is shocking.
Really. We'll take a short break now. We'll be back with more news headlines. Please stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. We continue with the headlines, Tonto, right?
Thank you, Dr. Abati. Still in Nigeria, a van driver with Bayelsa Radio, Simon Onu, has been shot dead, while several others sustained injuries at a political rally in Nembe, Bayelsa State. The gunmen were said to have invaded the rally of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, on Tuesday afternoon while the event was ongoing. This is coming 3 days to the governorship election in the state. Fidelis Soriwai, spokesman of Seriake Dixon, the governor, alleged that the attack was carried out by thugs of the All Progressives Congress, APC. According to him, the attackers also opened fire at the protocol bus of the Bayelsa State Government House at a junction between Basambiri and Ogbolombabiri. This is so sad that there's been this one fatality and other injuries. I remember reading, was one of the headlines of this day, that INEC was predicting a bloodbath in Bayelsa and Kogi, and I wish they just would not use such sensational language. But these events are bearing them out, that the sensational language does fit what is going on there. This is dreadful.
Well, I mean, what is happening in both Kogi and Bayelsa states is frightening. You will recall that in Kogi State also, a peace accord meeting that was to be held, attended by the Director General of NYSC, the Chairman of INEC, and also the Inspector General of Police. This week, 2 days ago, in fact on Tuesday, was disrupted with tear gas because of the outbreak of violence between supporters of the governor, as alleged, and members of the Social Democratic Party. And that raised the level of anxiety about Kogi State. But what is even happening in Bayelsa is worse. That place where this gentleman was killed, unfortunately, Simon Onu of Bayelsa Radio, is in the Nembe region. And that's where the deputy governorship candidate of the APC comes from. So, and I mean, only a few days earlier, he had been disqualified by a federal high court in Abuja. So if you look at Bayelsa politics, there's so much division. And that's unfortunate considering the fact that Bayelsa is essentially a homogeneous state. It's people from the same Ijo, but from Bayelsa, from Yenagua to Kolokuma, to Sagbama, to Nembe, to Ogbia, all those places. There's so much politics, everybody is divided. And I think that, again, the Inspector General of Police should take special note of this to realize that he has a lot of work on his hands, both in Kogi State and in Bayelsa. 2 days to the election, the campaigns will end today. The APC in Bayelsa ended their own campaign on Tuesday. Then, of course, the next major event will be the election on Saturday. And Nigerians generally should also be concerned that, yes, there is violence in different parts of the country, but the level of violence, particularly in Rivers and Bayelsa during elections that we have seen, calls for a lot of, soul searching, a lot of vigilance on the part of the security agencies. We've always said, the military should not be called in, the military should be kept in the outer ring. But, you could find a situation if there is any breakdown of law and order in either Bayelsa or Kogi on Saturday, we will not be in a position subsequently to blame the military for helping to save the situation. In fact, the incident in Kogi on Tuesday, the Nigerian army had to be called in to help.
This is awful.
And in Bayelsa, almost everybody has a gun. There's the proliferation of small arms and weapons. And if you read the mood in that state, it's like everybody is just waiting for Saturday to do battle. And I hope that does not happen. I hope the Bayelsa elite will call on everybody and provide the necessary leadership. And that, the military, the police, and the civil defense. The IG is deploying about 20,000 policemen to Bayelsa alone, 10,000 civil defense officials. I mean, look at that number. That in itself says it.
We have a huge problem.
Yeah, this is a huge problem, and it's a great worry ahead of Saturday because, of course, you would naturally want to call for peace and calm on that particular day. But with the way things have been brewing, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. And it is worrying because when you have a situation like Kogi earlier on this week where the military had to be called in, you can only wonder what's going to take place on Saturday. And it's extremely worrying. It's extremely worrying. You're right, Dr. Abati, when you said that the leadership, the elite, the political elite in Bayelsa do have to take control and call for certain measures on Saturday ahead of the elections because this is quite a worrying situation.
We really must just stop being so primitive. We cover elections all over the world. We see how things are done. It is just the exercise of a civic duty. It's not a war. It's ridiculous.
And I hope that the person who shot the Bayelsa radio staff, will be identified and made to face the full wrath of the law.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The
Director General of the Progressive Governors Forum, PGF, Mr. Salihu Lukman, has called on the National Chairman of the party, Adams Oshiomhole, to immediately convene a National Executive Council NEC meeting to resolve the lingering problems in the party or resign immediately. In a statement on Wednesday, Lukman cited the ongoing political battle between Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki and Oshiomhole, among many other crises facing the party. He said in the current circumstance, nothing short of a NEC or National Caucus meeting of the party could resolve all the challenges of the party. He called on the national leaders of the party to rise to the challenge facing the party and take all necessary measures to convene superior organ meetings to begin to resolve all the challenges facing the party, adding that the current public disgrace must end. And it truly is a disgrace when the ruling party cannot get its act in order. We all know that APC was a coalition, but by now all those fault lines should have sort of been blended in and we should have some kind of cohesion. But no, continued wranglings, although I sincerely doubt that Adams Oshiomhole would ever consider resignation even for 1 second. I hope he takes the other suggestion and really calls a meeting, some kind of way forward, because as things are going now, the party is severely fractured.
Yes, it's a divided political party which has not been able to manage its success. Either after the 2015 general election or even after the 2019 general election. And in this particular case, the Director General of the Progressive Governors Forum is assumed to be speaking for APC governors. The supporters of the chairman of the party, Adams Oshiomhole, they have responded to say that the Director General of the Progressive Governors Forum is merely a chief administrative officer, and that he does not speak for the governors. But of course, some other leaders of the party have supported him to say that he's making a very, very good, valid point. The last time the National Executive Council of the All Progressives Congress met was in 2018, long before the elections, June 2018. The constitution of the APC says that, the NEC must meet on a quarterly basis. But even since the election, there has not been an attempt to meet. And that Director General made the point that it's the National Executive Committee of the party that is supposed to, run the party at the level of policy. And that's why he's saying it's NEC that should deal with challenges and address them. But that the National Working Committee of the party, which is just an administrative body, has usurped the powers of NEC. So on the basis of this, you find a lot of conflict within the within the APC. And in the last election, they paid dearly for that in Zamfara, in Bauchi, in Rivers State, and in Adamawa State, states that were taken from them by the PDP. Now, this time around, observers have also pointed out that there are issues within the APC. In Edo, which is the home state of the chairman of the party himself, in Rivers State, in Ondo State, and in other places. And the fear is that if the neck of the party does not come quickly and take charge, then of course you could have a situation whereby the PDP will continue to have an advantage over the party. So those who are expressing concern about the party solving its problems, they have a point. But what is more important is ensuring internal democracy within either the APC or PDP or any of the other political parties. Well, Chairman Adams Oshiomhole himself is embattled. You know that in Edo State, a faction of the APC suspended him as a member of the party. But almost immediately yesterday, another faction suspended the chairman of the party, of the faction that is loyal to Godwin Obaseki. You know, Obaseki himself was suspended. His secretary to state government was suspended. His chief of staff, you know. So you have conflict even in the chairman of the party's home base, and which is very unfortunate because Adams Oshiomhole started out as a national figure. He went to be governor. He came back to the national stage and is now bogged down by local, you know, wranglings within the party that he leads.
Politics is local, Dr. Abad.
Well, maybe.
That's a point.
Maybe, but not in terms of conflict, in terms of service, in terms of engagement with the people.
Even conflict, because even these calls against him are because of that local row that he's having. It ultimately boils down to local politics, always.
Okay, but at least as chairman of a major national party, we will expect that, you know, you'll be able to provide the leadership, rise above it, and be able to show example and not be bogged down by the local politics in the Edo State, but also be interested in what goes on in other states of where the party, you know, is in charge or is seeking to displace other political parties. Otherwise, you have this kind of problem because it will look like the chairman of the party himself is distracted.
Mm-hmm. And internal party democracy is so key. And what's happening is, even, was it last week when we had Ehi Brima and another guest on the show, and they were also speaking about the security in Edo State ever since this has broken out. And while some people don't believe that this has influenced insecurity, some of the guests were of the opinion that this has actually really influenced insecurity, and this is more about the people now, because like they said, and we always say, when two elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. And he was saying that this is more about the people and the fact that this internal party democracy seeping across the state is only really affecting the citizens of Edo State, and that's a worry. That's a serious worry too.
But when you see the high-profile guests that went to Edo State and were attacked, you start to wonder if that can happen to them, then
it can happen
what happens to everybody else?
To ordinary people.
Yes.
And it looks like everybody in Edo State has his own small band of thugs. We thought that that would not be the case in 2019. In Nigerian politics, but we still have a long way to go.
So primitive.
Yeah.